Hey guys, in this video we will learn about what is Azure App Service. Before we start, make sure you have active Azure subscription. If you don't have Azure subscription, I have already created a video on how to create Azure subscription for free. I'll post a link in the description below. Azure App Service is fully managed platform as a service for managing and deploying web application. But what is platform as a service? In the cloud world, each service are categorized in mainly four categories: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and we have a fairly new fourth category, which is serverless computing. In infrastructure as a service, cloud vendor responsibility is to manage servers and storage, networking, firewall, security, and the data center. Managing of the operating system and the deployment tools and hosting and writing the application is the responsibility of the developer or the user. In platform as a service, the responsibility of the cloud vendor get increased to manage the operating system as well as the deployment tools and database. In software as a service, all these categories will be managed by the vendor. Example of the infrastructure as a service is Azure Virtual Machine, where the Azure will manage the server and storage, networking, and the data center for us, and the rest of the thing we have to manage, including the updating the operating system. And the app service is a platform as a service, in which we will write and deploy the application, but rest of these things will be managed by Azure. And the example of the software as a service is Office 365 or Azure DevOps, where we just have to pay and buy the subscription, and rest of this responsibility is managed by that vendor. Now let's go to Azure portal and create our first app service. Go to portal.azure.com, sign in with your subscription or your account, and then click on the create resource, and then click on the web application service. Select your subscription, and then we have to create a resource group. If you have already existing resource group, you can place that service in that resource group, but in this case I'm going to create a new resource group. Let's name it app service, and then we have to give the name of this web application. The name of the web application has to be unique across the Azure, so let's give web application, and I'm going to give some random numbers so it will be unique. Okay, and the next category is how we are gonna publish the code to this particular app service. We have the two choices over here. One is we can directly deploy our code to the app service, or we can deploy it from the Docker container. I'm gonna skip the Docker container part right now because we are gonna see in another video how we can deploy the Docker container image into the app service. For the runtime, we can see we have a lot of different workloads. So we can deploy the .NET, we can deploy the Java, we can deploy the Node and the PHP and Python, Ruby, etc. In this case, I'm just gonna go with the .NET 5, and then probably we're gonna deploy a .NET application to it. Okay, now we have a two choice for the operating system. We can go with Linux or Windows. I'm going to go with Linux, and then we have to select the region. Let's go with the Central US. This is a very important part. We have to create an app service plan, and I'm going to explain what is the difference between the app service and the app service plan, and what is the relationship between that. But for now, let's go and create this app service plan. We have we can select what size of the app service plan we need. So we can click on the change size. And here you see we have a lot of scenario. We have a workload for the production. We have a workload for the dev test. Let's go to dev test and see. So for example, we have this F1 pricing tier where it's free. It's gonna be free. We have 1 GB of memory. It will give us a 60 minutes of day of compute, and if you just want to test something out, you can just use it. It's gonna be really slow, but that will do the job. And we have a couple of B series option as well. We have B1, B2, B3. B1 will give you 100 CPU, 1.75 GB of RAM, and it will get keep increasing based on the higher we go. And what feature it will give us? It will give us a custom domain. We can manually scale up to 3 instances, and then we have a 10 GB of storage. And if I go to production, based on the production tier selected, we have a lot of additional feature, like for example, we can do the backup, we can have a staging slot. This is a really interesting feature we are going to explore in some other video. And then custom domain, and we can this we can scale up to an instance, and based on the requirement we can go we can select it here. But in today's scenario I'm just gonna go with the B1, which is enough for this demo. And then we can skip the deployment and the monitoring part right now. We are going to come back and look into it, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and click on review and create. Okay, so everything looks good. I'm just going to click on create. It's going to take a couple of minutes to provision this service. I'm going to come back once this is provisioned. As you can see, it got provisioned. It took about 30 seconds, and if I expand the deployment details, we have 2 resources. And you might be a little confused. We only created app service. Why we have 2 resources? So let's click on our resource group and let's see how many resources we have. So here we got one is the app service plan and one is the app service. Now, in order to understand what is the difference between app service and app service plan, I have a small diagram. I'm just going to show you. App service plan is something you can think of it as a virtual machine, and this is actually when we select that plan, it will give us this particular virtual machine behind the scene. You can think app service as a web application, and one app service plan can host multiple web application. So for example, let's say if you want to create a new app service, you need to create the app service plan as well? No, you can host that particular app service in this exact same plan, and that will be purely based on the capacity of the plan you have. So for example, if you have let's say a standard S1 or premium app service plan, and you think like that your application is not consuming a lot of memory and CPU in that app service plan, you can host your multiple application inside the same plan. And we're just gonna create another node based app service plan and just reuse this app service plan, and we can see both will work. Just one thing to keep in mind, there is a limit when we have a basic series app service plan. I think the limit is around, you can only host 100 app service, but if you go to premium or standard, you can host, theoretically you can host unlimited app service, but definitely it will be based on the capacity you have in that app service plan. Okay, so as we can see, in one app service plan we can host multiple web application. So let's go ahead and create and see how our web application looks like. So when you open the app service, this is gonna be the landing page for it. You have a lot of features over here, and then you will have the URL of that particular app service, and then you can see a little bit of metrics over here, how many requests, what is response time, data in, data out, and the HTTP 500 error if you have any in your application. And if I click on this particular URL, it will give me the landing page for the app service, which is just a basic simple page. It will say like your app service is up and running. Just one thing to keep in mind, as we have a very small app service plan, and when you click it on the first time, it might take a couple of seconds to load, and the subsequent request will be very fast. So as you can see, this page just get load up, and it is saying, hey .NET developers, you have a quick start. It will redirect you to Microsoft documentation, or you can go to the deployment center and link it to your GitHub repository or Git repository, and then just deploy the code. And that is something we are going to look in the next video. But for now, this is what it will give us, and then we can go ahead and use all these features and deploy our code. Now let's go ahead and create another app service, and let's see if we can reuse this same exact app service plan. So I'm going to click on this add button over here, and then again we will select the same web application, and this time, as we already have the resource group, we are going to go ahead and select our resource group. And then I'm going to give let's say we are going to create the stack will be let's go with the Node 14 LTS, and I'm going to say Node app, and I'm going to put a bunch of numbers so that the name will be unique. And then we can select the same Central US plan, and here if you scroll it down, it will by default show you your existing app service plan. So I can either go and create a new one, but I can even select my existing app service plan, and it is showing me that this particular app service plan is basic B1 with 100 total ACU and 1.75 GB of RAM. and then I can just select that and click on review and create and go with the exact same process which we did for the previous app service plan. And I'm going to click on create and it will just provision that. So this took around again 30 to 40 seconds, and if we expand the deployment details, we only see like we only have that app service or the website got created. It didn't create any app service plan because we already have it. So if we go into the app service resource group again, we'll see we have 2 app service and only 1 app service plan. And if I go into this particular app service plan, which is the Linux base, we can see we have 2 applications on it. So if I click, it will show me exactly how many applications this particular app service plan is hosting, and we have about the first application, and the second one is the node based which we have created. And let me go and click on that node based app service, and if we click on the link, it will give us a landing page for the node based application, and again then we can go and deploy our code and it will serve our code. Again, when you click on the first time, it will take a couple of seconds to load, and then the subsequent request will be much faster. And the second thing to consider is we have a very small plan and we are hosting 2 applications in it. Okay, so this page got loaded and we can see, hey, node developers, you can go to Microsoft documentation, or you can go to deployment center and deploy your Node.js based web API or a web application, and same goes for the .NET code as well. So I hope you got the idea of what Azure App Service is and what is the difference between App Service and App Service Plan. In next video, we will deploy both .NET and the Node.js based web application to these app services and see what are the process behind to deploy your own code to this app service plan. Thank you. If you find this video helpful, please like the video and click on the subscribe button.